they have to downgrade GM, buy to hold.
Ford fell more than 3% generally.
I'm never someone that says go out and panic buy.
That has not been shipped yet or is at the dock that's getting
5% auto tariffs target imported cars, including passenger vehicles.
Third point blank, volumes are going to be down. And I think the reason why that matters is
14,000 jobs vanished and 5 factories shuttered, yet Trump still insists that a 200% tariff will rescue America's auto engine. Relax. General Motors just proved that his America First narrative is more fairy tale than fact, much like that border wall that never rose. GM's maneuver blindsided him, rewrote the script, and left him speechless. The car giant axed 14,000 positions and closed 5 US plants, an economic slap that stunned Trump, who looked like a sulking child robbed of his favorite toy, powerless to stop it. The big question is, what did GM do to make Trump mutter his anger in silence? Instead of clinging to America First, the company set it aside, went global, and poured billions into the electric vehicle race. Territory Trump barely recognized. More than $20 billion flowed into EV R&D, while the president relied on tariffs and empty tweets. It felt as if Trump guarded domestic industry while GM secured the planet's future. So who is really ahead? Trump struck back with 200% tariffs, convinced that this magic figure would make manufacturers sprint home. Reality felt more like punching a concrete wall. Sector stocks tumbled and investors scattered. Yet the numbers turned comical. GM's share price dipped just 3% and rebounded days later on international revenue. In 2024 alone, the company generated over $32 billion beyond US borders. As Trump tangled in a tariff war, GM had spent years weaving a global strategy, knowing that focusing solely on domestic production is a shortcut to defeat. One presidential misstep could cost millions of jobs, but GM sidestepped that trap. The figures are plain. In 2024, more than 40% of GM's output came from foreign plants, and the firm injected $1 billion to expand factories in China and India, both immune to Trump's tariffs. While the president searches for external scapegoats, GM swims like a fish in water. If Trump published a globalization handbook, it might struggle to find readers. The US auto sector's health keeps fading. 2 million vehicles will go unsold in 2025, a blaring siren the president ignores. Hyundai, Toyota, and Nissan have already shifted large chunks of production overseas to dodge duties. Hyundai and Toyota now build more than half their cars outside the United States, and GM has earmarked $5 billion for new EV plants in Mexico. Trump clings to his slogan, unaware that GM has taken another road and is accelerating into the future. His policy flies into a headwind while GM strides confidently through the electric universe and Trump spins on a carousel of unrealistic levies. As GM cements global EV leadership, China slams the accelerator to seize the sector, funneling massive sums into tech and batteries while the president dusts off an old trade war playbook few remember. 2,000 jobs lost and $50 billion shifted later. Ford didn't step back. It stepped away. No warning, no excuses, just one move. Leave US soil, betrayal, or the lone route to survive. When Ford abandoned its birthplace, Michigan, the industrial heart, flatlined. Wayne's Lifeline declared the Focus, C-Max, and much of its EV lineup would be built abroad. No plants, no assembly lines, no promise of return. Why? A tariff tempest. Steel and aluminum prices soaring, lithium 3 times costlier between 2020 and 2024, most of it refined in China. Building an EV in America now runs 25% higher, and Ford was cornered. The fight is no longer against a single firm, but an entire system. Tesla mines lithium, makes batteries, produces cars, and trains self-driving AI under one roof, with no dealerships slowing the dance. Ford, caught between unions and legacy systems, had to reinvent itself. Enter Project T3, $50 billion invested, a BMW alliance for solid-state batteries, robots assembling 90% of each car, 1 million mile lifespans, charges in minutes. Showrooms? Gone. Just click and drive. They branded Ford disloyal and it didn't flinch. After the announcement, political hurricane was inevitable. Trump fired back. They turned their backs on the workers. He threatened tariffs, blacklists, federal contract cancellations. Ford didn't budge. CEO Jim Farley lobbed a single dart. Would you rather lose 2,000 jobs today or 20,000 in 5 years? Ford chose to save the frame, sacrificing the emblem, and perhaps penned the rawest act of patriotism in decades. Adapt or perish. Ford picked its side. Robots outnumber people. Software engineers replace line workers. Cars ship like Amazon packages. If it succeeds, it opens the path to a post-oil industrial rebirth. If it fails, its fall blares a siren for every corporation still dozing on 20th century laurels. Ford may be first, but it won't be last. The manufacturer's survival demands more than protectionism in a hyperspeed market. Now to finance, $1.7 trillion evaporated and the dollar staggered. Japan, a longtime ally, dropped bombs on the market by dumping $1.7 trillion in treasuries. Yields spiked, the currency dove, equities tanked. Decades of Japanese support for America's financial system vanished overnight. Why? Tariffs punishing Toyota, Nissan, and Honda labeled foreign threats. Tokyo answered with surgical precision, no speeches, no prelude. The dominoes fell fast. Wall Street shed $5 trillion in value and the real pain hit consumers. Vehicle prices soared. Imported EVs vanished. Inflation rekindled. A cheap dollar made fuel, food, and electronics pricier. The middle class, promised job salvation through tariffs, watched bills, mortgages, and savings swell or shrink. All fueled by a short-sighted strategy, sacrificing future stability. Japan's spark ignited a rebellion against the dollar. China trimmed reserves and pushed yuan settlements. India, South Korea, Brazil, and the Emirates diversified holdings. Moscow had long left US assets. Tokyo went further, deepened Asian monetary cooperation, bought regional bonds, and ditched USD transactions. A new financial order is brewing with the dollar no longer the hub and Japan leading the charge. Washington missed it through hubris, assuming Japan would never revolt. Markets sank and the world took note. From Asia to Europe, voices rose. Is it time to step out of the dollar's shadow? Meanwhile, the US slapped a 50% tariff on Chinese goods, and markets erased hundreds of billions within hours. Defense strategy or reckless bet the planet will pay. Together, the US and China make up nearly 40% of global GDP. The American deficit with Beijing topped $295 billion in 2024, and Washington accuses China of IP theft and subsidies. Each new levy nudges phone, TV, and sneaker prices up 0.4 to 0.6%. Who's really hurt? The Dow Jones plunged 1,679 points. Apple lost nearly 9%. Tesla over 5% in a day. Treasuries became a haven. 10-year yields fell from 4.3 to 4.0% on April 3, 2025. The boomerang effect was on display. China shot back with a 34% tariff on almost all US goods. We're opening new markets and cutting US dependence, a senior official declared. Yet Beijing drags a $2 trillion real estate crisis and an advanced chip shortage throttling key sectors. Strong outside, fragile inside, China tiptoes a tightrope. The trade war threatens the entire financial system. US national debt tops $36.2 trillion and pays $892 billion in annual interest. Some investors already doubt the dollar. The DXY hovers near 102.7. If the reserve currency loses shine, a global reset could ignite. A sliver of relief arrives from the southern border. Approval of immigration policies climbs to 28%, far above 2020. The White House touts its agenda beyond tariffs. Yet the economy is decisive. If prices keep climbing and jobs vanish, no political win will suffice. While the US raises tariffs, China rewrites rules through the Belt and Road. investing in Africa, and tightening ties with ASEAN and Latin America. Today, nearly half of Chinese exports head to developing economies, not America, forging a new ecosystem where the United States is no longer the trade epicenter. What if the European Union suddenly levies a 25% tariff on US goods, inflicting a $24 billion blow? Steel, aluminum, tobacco, chicken, almonds, and orange juice would spike. If Washington retaliates, butter and European cheeses could cost up to 30% more, saddling each US household with an extra $1,500 to $2,000 yearly. A $30,000 BMW could jump to $35,000, walloping the middle class. US agriculture would lose sales as the EU trims California almond and Florida citrus imports. Domestic prices would rise when producers redirect supply abroad. Under European pressure, a second-term Trump would vow, "We won't lose this war," citing the post-2018 steel uptick. But escalation has already lifted steel and aluminum costs 10 to 15% for manufacturers like GM or Boeing, who must pass on costs or slash investment. Ford warned in 2019 that tariffs would cost it $1 billion. Today, the bill would be bigger. Trump wouldn't stop at tariffs. He'd erect non-tariff barriers, squeeze tech exports, and prod NATO allies, deepening geopolitical tension and sowing uncertainty among businesses. Nations from Japan to South Korea could answer with their own duties, and China is already eyeing fresh agricultural levies. The EU ponders widening tariffs to cars and tech, which would raise iPhone prices and shave Silicon Valley's market share. Ultimately, the United States risks forfeiting ground, while Europe cuts deals with China or Japan and Australia tightens Asian links. This tariff war, far from a bilateral spat, could reshape the global economy in ways few now imagine.